Now I'm living the best years of my life right now, just having that time with my son and my wife. I love what you say about him jumping on the bit. You watching the fights, Daddy? My boy's just learning how to say fighting, fighting. I say to him, what's the meaning of life? And he say, boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and Muay Thai.
To be here with such an accomplished man, Nick Chapman, former MMA champion, multiple business owner, and now one of the happiest people. And what I like to say, you're a black belt in life, Nick.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good way of putting it. Black belt in life. Because it's I'm a brown belt in jiu-jitsu and it's really hard to get to black belt in that. So I'll take the black belt in life.
But it's amazing, Nick. I mean, I saw you going for a beach in the morning, and I know you just dropped your son off at school. You've created this amazing life, and I'd love to talk a little bit. Maybe if you can bring it back to you just retired from MMA, you've had your last fight, you're living in England, to then getting from there to arriving the first time in Thailand and ready to make a new life.
Yeah, okay. So I worked tirelessly for nearly 10 years to win that title on Ultimate Challenge. When I first went to Cage Rage in 2002, I was watching the light heavyweight champion win. By that time, I'd never done any proper training, and I was like, shit, I want that. I want that belt. My friends obviously laughed at me, but I went training, and I trained and trained and trained. I got the title when I was 39. I won it after two failed attempts against Jimmy Manoir and Linton Vassell, but I got it on a third attempt, and yeah, I was 39, but I felt like I'm glad I got it, Lawrence, because I never would have quit, and I would have just got hurt because I was 39. I'm fighting these young bucks, and it was getting tough. But anyway, I got to a point where I was like, right, I got what I set out to achieve. I was getting too old for the sport. What's next? So I retired from the sport, and then soon become frustrated, and something was missing. I was lost. So I needed something new. So I literally said, all right, I'm leaving. I'm just leaving England because I don't like England anyway. And I sold everything. So I had multiple businesses, some properties, and I was quite wealthy, but I said, I'm just getting rid of all of it. I broke all the companies down. I sold everything off, and I had a lot of money in my bank and had my passport. And I went to the airport, and I'm like, where am I going to go? I could have literally just thrown a dart at the globe and gone, right, I'll go there. I said, I'll go see my friend in Thailand. So I jumped on a plane and ended up in Pattaya, see my friend, and never left. Never left. And it's just gone from here, strength to strength. I'm glad I did it because retiring from fighting was a really difficult thing to do. But this sort of gave me a whole new lease of life.
Well, what's so impressive, Nick? Well, two things. You said it was so hard. It was hard for me, and I had a career before fighting. Fighting was just, I knew it was a short-term thing. It was more like pursuit of my personal, no, I want to be my best self and see how far I could take it. But it was a personal quest. And you were so successful. One of the things I love about you is you gave some advice years ago. I remember reading it, and I was like thinking, I wish I'd had you in my life when I was fighting, because I was the worst. I didn't try and sell any tickets. I wasn't promoting myself because for me it was an internal thing. But of course, the promoters hate that. If you got to help the promoters. Now I'm older and wiser. I know how hard it is for them to make money, and so I was terrible on that sense. And the other thing, like I feel like you had a huge crowd behind you. People really rooting for you. You did such a good job of marketing yourself. So that leads me to what I'm thinking when I'm hearing your story is the hardest part for me, if I thought about leaving Chicago, is all the personal connections and the network that I've made here. But for you, it was okay for you. You could just give it all up. It wasn't too difficult.
Well, okay, first of all, I love what you said about the reason you started fighting, because, dude, if you're going to learn about yourself, it's during those fight camps and then in that ring, that for me resonates because, I learned a lot about myself through those fight camps. I completely respect that. And it's funny you mentioned about the self-promotion, because I never had a manager. I managed myself, and I did very, very well compared to everyone around me. I had guys that were fighting on the UFC at the time, and I was kind of a nobody, and I just overtook them with the profile and the money I was making and the opportunities I was getting, and they couldn't understand it. But those same guys criticized me for self-promoting. And I'm like, they're criticizing me for promoting myself. I'm looking at them, criticizing them for not promoting themselves. I'm like, what don't you guys understand about this? This is show business. Like, if you can't understand that you're there to put bums on seats or get eyeballs on that product, then you're doing something wrong. And yeah, it used to absolutely amaze me. And since then, I've actually written an entire book and prepared an online course to teach fighters how to promote themselves, how to get them opportunities, how to stand out. But over the research I've done in years and years and years, I've realized that fighters don't even want to hear it. It's like a lot of them don't understand it, don't want any part of it. And it's really frustrating because it is show business. So yeah, it's an interesting point you make.
Yeah. So was that easy for you to promote yourself, or how did you because for me, I remember when I switched over to real estate, if real estate is half my friends and my clients. So if people around me don't know what I'm doing, it's going to be very hard to grow my business. And I remember for the first year, I really struggled on self-promotion. And there was a part of me that was just, I wanted the business to come and fall in my lap, but I want to go out and get it. It was kind of a mix of humility and shyness. And just, I'd never been in a position where I had to put myself out there, because when I was younger, I worked in finance and I didn't have social media. You didn't need to promote yourself, And I see that more and more. And I'm always telling friends, like, listen, you have to, if you're in a business where you need clients and you need people to know about what you're doing, you got to promote yourself. So was that easy for you? Or did you just realize that this is show business and I have to put myself out there?
Okay, so I've been fascinated by two things in my life. Okay, the first thing is martial arts. My whole life, I've been fascinated by hand-to-hand combat since I was a baby. And the other thing that I absolutely obsessed with is business. Now, that's probably just a lucky combination. When I was growing up, I worked with my dad. I was entrepreneurial. He encouraged me to have my own business. When I was young, I was cleaning cars and what have you. And so I kind of grew up with an entrepreneurial mindset. So I transferred the skills that I'd learned through that into my fighting career. So I guess that helped. That helped a lot. But going back to your original question, which was another really interesting point, when I left, so I built up this really impressive and supportive network. I mean, I just loved everyone that supported me. I could not thank them enough. I'd always make sure that I'd always send them a T-shirt or a thank you note. I'd message everybody by hand personally when they bought tickets. I'd just keep in touch with them. And I built up a huge level of support. And yeah, it was difficult leaving that behind. But what was really great was the social media, because although I moved location, I still to this day have that entire network support me. Whatever business I do, if I post it online, they support me. I mean, it's amazing. I don't know. We just had this amazing, we called it the Headhunter Army, because my pseudonym was the Headhunter. And yeah, they just stuck by me. I stuck by them. And to this day, they still do. So yeah, I kind of missed the moving away, but at the same time, they're still with me.
That's amazing. And the thing is, Nick, the courage that you had to do something like that, what I always think, and what I've given this advice to people that have been in those kind of crossroads, it's like, listen, if you go and you don't like it, you can always come back. But you just don't want to be the guy in 10 years wishing, 10 years ago, I wish I had done this when I had the opportunity.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that scares the life out of me. The thought of missing an opportunity because I did have the balls to take it. Like, nah, sorry. I mean, I don't know. I have this through my life. I've been through some pretty tough times. I'm my own fault. I want to blame it myself. But it taught me a lot. It taught me that life is very short, and your experiences are completely down to the decisions you make. Now, you can decide to sit there and do nothing. Okay, and in 10 years' time, you can look back and go, what if? Now, if you're okay with that, fine, carry on. But for me, that what if is not something I want to deal with. I want to go and try. I want to see. And if it doesn't work out, like you say, I'll always have a plan B or a backup plan. Yeah, I'm not scared to take a risk, that's for sure.
So the one thing I know, I don't know if it was different when you moved to Thailand, but they don't make it easy for expats like us just to move there, right? You have to get the 3-month visa. And I know when I was training there, guys would go to Laos or go to Cambodia and then come back for a few days for the visa run. When you went there, was it the same kind of thing for you?
Yeah, that's great. I call it the filter. So the system is very smart. Okay, it's designed to give people the opportunity to come here, travel and spend money. But if you're not the type of person that can get by in society, contribute and have a level of income behind you, this system will filter you out and send you straight back. So what happens then is you have an expat community of people that are generally quite wealthy, support themselves, contribute to the country and the society and business mostly. And all the guys that maybe want to leech off the system, maybe not contribute so much, they can have fun and then they can go. So the system is geared up for people that are able to survive and think and plan and contribute. So it's a very interesting point you make. I got here very quickly, realized that the system was built that way. So I just found, as I do always, is ways to navigate it, and not just navigate, but come out on top. And yeah, I've done very well. I understand the system now, and it's working well for me, bro.
So how long was it from when you landed in Thailand to when you felt like this is my home? I've built a good life here and I've got everything in place. How long did that take?
Well, lovely question. Okay. Well, I remember landing in Bangkok. I drove to Pattaya. As I come into the city in the car, I looked around and went, get me out of this shithole. Like, get me out. I don't want to be here. I wasn't used to it. It was just different. And it took me 2 days and I was absolutely in love with the place. Like, I had to come in, book the hotel. I'd settled in and I'm like, okay, this is level a little look around. But I had actually said, I'm booking, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to Mexico. I'm going to move. It was 2 days and I was completely in love with the place.
That's incredible. And then how long did it take for you to meet your wife?
Oh, 1 year. Yeah, I didn't come here looking for a wife. I had money. I was kind of with an English girl at the time. She came out later, but I wasn't looking for a wife. I wasn't looking for anything. I just wanted to settle down. I wanted to get my head around the fact that I wasn't training anymore. And I told myself, crazy, I'm going to retire and I'm going to love it. That's bullshit. So I met my wife within 12 months, and I think it was 18 months later, we got married. So yeah, it was, I guess, relatively quickly. I've been here 7 years now.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because they say the two biggest indicators of if you're going to be happy or not is if you're in a good relationship, and if your work, most people spend most of their day working. If it's something that challenges you, that you get some positive benefits from, not just the money, but actual positive challenge. So I think you and I are so lucky. We're in very compatible relationships. And I know before I met my wife, I had some of the most embarrassing relationships to be in as a guy in his late 30s. I was like, what am I doing with these dysfunctional and just aggressive and fighting all the time? Like these are the kind of relationships you have in your early 20s, not in your late 30s. So when I met her, I was just like, oh, it's so nice to meet someone you're compatible with and everything's not a fight. And I feel like that's, even now I have friends that are in their mid to late 40s that are still looking for that. So I always feel like we're very lucky that, our paths crossed with our wives when they did.
I was actually going to say to you, like, observing you and Jen, just the way you guys are with your son, the way you are on social media, it's so good to see. And I was actually going to say to you that you do actually have that same connection that I have with my wife. And it is very hard to find. And like you said, I honestly believe the most important decision you're ever going to make in your life as a man that wants to develop and grow is the person you spend your life with, so your partner. And like you, I look back at some of my relationships and think, what was I doing? I guess it's all part of growth, development, and learning, isn't it? But exactly. Yeah, it's lovely to see the way you guys are as well. It looks great.
Oh, thank you, brother. Yeah, I heard someone say, if you look back, say you were promoting yourself and you were doing videos. If you look back at something you were doing 5, 6, 7 years ago and you're not embarrassed by it, it means you're not growing. So I'm actually really proud of stuff. When I look back and I'm like cringing, I'm like, oh my God, that was awful. I'm really proud of it because it means that I've grown today.
I love that. I never even thought of it like that, but you're absolutely right. If I look back 3 years ago, some of the stuff I did that I'm quite proud of, but like 7 years ago, no, it's cringe. Yeah. And that's a great perspective. I'm always going to remember that. I like
that. So brother, when you were young, you said you got yourself into trouble. You said it was your fault. You had a pretty good relationship with your parents. I think you told me before, right? You said you weren't one of those people that was always fighting with your parents. It sounds like you had a pretty good upbringing with your family, but you were just wild. Is that right? You kind of untamed. You didn't have an outlet for all your energy.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so I've actually written a journal recently to go back on everything from the past and try and analyze why I went down such a bad route. My mum was amazing. You couldn't ask for a better mum. My dad was a very good, strong, dependable guy. But it was almost like I didn't have a father. We didn't see eye to eye. We were very different people, but he was a very good, loyal, hardworking man, and he was a great provider. But I think at the time when I was a bit younger, I needed more of a father or a dad. Didn't quite have that with him. So, but other than that, absolutely, I have no complaints about my childhood. I was a very fortunate young man growing up, or young lad. But yeah, I just chose a different path. My issues was that I absolutely despised the system. I didn't want any part of it. The school system, the whole get a job, go to college, get a family settled. I didn't want any part of any of that. So I sort of kicked that system. But yeah, I had a good family background.
So Nick, that's so interesting. So I'm thinking a lot about the system, and I don't know how much you follow American politics, but one of the things that people are really happy about is this guy RFK Jr. He's come out and he's just saying the system is so corrupt. You have the food pyramid of healthy foods in the US, and it has sugary cereal as better than meat. And it's basically back to front because all these companies that make the sugary cereal lobby and they give money to politicians. So the whole system is so backwards. And then you think about school, and I was playing with my son in the bath, and he had these little magnets making a road, and his road was zigzagging to the sky. And I started to show him that, no, you put the road together to make a road. And then I thought about it and I was like, man, the system is going to automatically make him conform. I want him to be as imaginative and playful as long as he can, live in his little imaginary bubble and world. And it's just so true that the system, if you follow the system right now in the US, you're just going to get a job you hate to pay for a mortgage that you can't afford, to be stuck in something. It's not going to give you a good life. You and I think we're happy because we both broke out of the system. We left England. We made our own lives somewhere else. We're both entrepreneurs. It's such a important lesson because now I'm thinking, I couldn't agree with you more. I can't stand the system. But now I'm thinking, well, what do I do with my son? Do I try and homeschool him? Do I give him these amazing experiences? Or do I put him in school just so he has a socialization? So I was actually talking to my wife about it today. It's like, what do we do? And it's such an interesting question because I don't know if you've noticed this, Nick, with your boy, but with my son, he's got some of my good qualities, but of course he's got some of my bad qualities too. So he's got this incredible temper, and I'm like, oh my god, I know where he got that from, and it wasn't my wife, it was from me, And he's incredibly stubborn, incredibly stubborn for a guy that's not even 4. And I think that's amazing because if he can channel that, that'll lead him to greatness, So just it's so interesting seeing that. But I don't know if you've seen that with your boy yet. But it's so great because you're such a proud father when they have your good qualities, and then when they have your not so good qualities, you're like, oh god.
It's crazy how much I can resonate with what you just said there as well. I mean, this is why I love talking to you and following what you do, because I don't know, we just seem to have very similar ideologies about life in general. And yeah, my son is, I mean, they go to the school and they say he's very intelligent, which I was. They said, but he will not do what he's told. And I'm like, he'll do what he wants to do, And I'm hoping that he's not going to be unruly like I was, because I was absolutely I was never going to be told. I was out of control at one point. But at the same time, I kind of like it in him that he's not going to be manipulated. He's not going to be pushed a certain way. And if he ever comes home from school one day and he says, Dad, I really hate school, I don't want to go, I'm saying, okay, we're not going then. Like, I'm never going to make my son go to school because, like you said, I think it's an indoctrination process. Now, I am in Thailand, but he is in an English school system. Now, I want him to learn English. I want him to learn Thai. I want him to learn maths. I want him to have a certain idea about socializing. But as far as I'm concerned, I want to follow the path he wants to follow. And I'm not going to force him in any direction, but I'm hoping that he doesn't want to feed into that system so much. But, let's see.
Yeah. So do you think if you could talk to yourself when you were younger and you were kind of just, you were so angry at the system and you started to go down the wrong road, what would you have told yourself? Or do you think it's one, like I always think there's certain things that you can be told and it might trigger like a light bulb moment, oh, I'm going to make a change. And there's other times in life, Nick, where I just feel like we're going to have to make the mistakes and then learn from the mistakes. So as a parent, I've been thinking about that a lot where, there's certain things where you and I are both going to have our boys are going to have their heart broken by their first love. I'm sure it's going to happen. There's certain things like that where like, that's healthy. That's a sign of growth, but you don't want him to make a mistake that's like irreversible. Like he gets drunk behind the wheel of a car and ends up in a really bad accident or, something like that. So just, I've been thinking a lot about that, like how the kind of conversations that can steer you from bad paths. But do you think with you, just when you were younger and you had that anti-authority personality, do you think you could have been talked out of it if your dad was more of a father figure, say, just as an example?
Wow. Do you know, I've always, as I said, I've just recently written my life story in a book because I needed to go back and analyze all of this. And I think if I could have gone back at any time in my life and given myself any advice, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't do it. I'd leave it. I'd just let it happen because everything has carved me into the person I am today. And I've finally become very proud of who I am. My integrity is intact, always has been. The suffering and the pain that I've been through has only made me stronger. And I do believe it's put me in a uniquely good position to be able to father my son, because I'll understand a lot of the issues that my dad didn't understand about me, hopefully. But bro, I wouldn't give myself any advice. I wouldn't change a thing. even if I think the one thing I might go back and say is don't date Sarah. That's it. Just 3 words. Don't date Sarah. Like, I think that's the one thing I would like to avoid. But even that has only made me appreciate my wife so much more, which has given me such a healthy, strong relationship. So I think I'd not even say that now. But how about you, bro? I mean, would you go back? What would you say? 3 words. What would you say to yourself?
Don't date Judy. But I think you're so but you're so right, because it was my most dysfunctional relationship as an adult was the one before I met Jen, and it made me appreciate her so much more. So I couldn't agree more. I think if you're happy with where you are right now, it's beautiful, because it means you don't have regret, because all the bad things that happened to you made you grow. So for me, my biggest mistake, Nick, is I made all this money when I was in my 20s, and I was a multimillionaire by the time I turned 30 from trading. And then I made when I quit to follow MMA, I kept this crazy lifestyle. It was through the 2009 stock crash. So I lost a whole bunch of money there. I'd invested in 2 startups that went to zero. I just made all these mistakes. And I always think, man, if I could have just told my young self, put $1 million in property that will be worth $10 million now, or even put $3,000 in Bitcoin and I'll be worth 100 billion. You think about that. But I think if that had happened, I would think, Nick, if I had bought Bitcoin back in the day, because intellectually I love the idea of, you and I are both anti-establishment. So for me, Bitcoin is anti, the banks and that whole charade. So I love the philosophy behind Bitcoin. But if I had discovered it much earlier and I'd made all this money through Bitcoin, not only would I have missed out on all the growth that I had to reinvent myself that I had the last 10 years, but I'd probably be, banging some model, traveling the world, and I wouldn't have my son, and I wouldn't be as happy as I am now. So if you're happy now, which I know you and I both are, it's so nice because it just banishes the thought of regret.
Absolutely, bro. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, we could spend all day talking about what ifs and what would I change. And I mean, like you, I don't have any regrets now, not now, because I am exactly where I want to be. I still, like you mentioned earlier, I have the relationship, which is the most important thing. I've been fortunate, or call it what you want. I made the right choices from whatever experiences I had, but I have the right relationship. But for me, I have purpose. I'm working on a few projects at the moment that just give me this drive, this passion, this purpose. And I've got my son and my family. I mean, what more could you want? I mean, yeah, it's always nice to have a bit more money, but that comes with hard work, doesn't it?
Yeah. I was going to say, one thing I noticed that you do well is I see some of the posts you put on social media where you kind of look back at times, like you had a picture of you training with all these MMA legends like Roger Gracie and GSP. And so you take the time to pause and look back. And I think that I'm trying to do that now more, where if you're only looking forward, you're going to be very productive, but you're not going to be happy. You're not going to savor the journey of life. But I love reading your stuff, because I'm trying to do that more recently. And I've only done it the last couple of years, where you pause and you look back at how far you've come and all the things you've done. And sometimes you forget, you and I, we've had several different careers in life, and you almost forget. Like for me, sometimes I forget that I was a former fighter, and then I see a photo I have in my office and I'm like, God, there were such good times, and I'm reliving them a bit. But it's hard because for, type A driven people, you're only looking forward and you're not really going to savor the journey. So I really love the fact that you take the time to think back and, be a little analytical and look back at all the awesome things you've done, because we should enjoy our successes.
Absolutely. And think, I mean, you're a fighter, bro. I mean, it's something to be proud of, because it takes courage, and it's and for me, this is one of the most important things about personal growth, is that to be a fighter, there is no quick route to that like you have to put aside your short-term gratification. You have to forget about short-term, and you have to be working towards the long-term. And I believe everything in life worth having is about putting aside short-term gratification for the long-term goals. And fighting was something that I think, we should be proud of. I look back on it as well, and it was a time in my life that helped me overcome the dark times. It had so much significance. And when I was going through the journey, I was battling demons. I was working hard to be a better person, and I chose fighting in order to do that. And now I look back and I reflect on the lessons that I learned, and I didn't realize how impactful they were whilst I was going through them. But then that being said, is that sometimes I think to myself, maybe I reflect too much, and I watch your content and I'm like, I love how you live in the present. Like you're taking day by day and you're attacking these opportunities and these presentations and these business and the way you are with your son. And I'm like, That's cool too, you know. So I think we've got to get the blend of you got to reflect and think about the past to learn from your mistakes and learn from the lessons. Definitely the most important thing is appreciating the present and again, setting goals for the future. So it's kind of blending it all together, I think.
I absolutely love that, Nick. That's so true. And I will say that before I became a dad, so I think he was born, I was 42 or maybe 41 when he was born. And I remember thinking, I thought that my life peaked at 35. I was super wealthy. I was a professional fighter. I was like chasing girls. I've had a limitless energy. I was like, I'm in the best shape of my life. And I finally figured out how to put all these arts together in combat. And I was like, okay, I had this real depression when I first retired because I was like, that's the best of my life. And I'm only going to be more miserable from now on. And I'm only going to be older and, have more aches and pains and less energy and all this stuff. But what I didn't realize is I didn't know what I didn't know. And I think about that all the time. I think one of my skills in life, Nick, is to know what I don't know in business, in life, in whatever it is. And I think too many people, the folly of a lot of these people that are these terrible, like in England went through 4 prime ministers in a few months. They were just like quitting. They were just, terrible. Is because so many of them get to the highest point of their career, but they don't know what they don't know. And I think that's an incredible form of ignorance. And so when I look back at me, I didn't know the kind of happiness that I would get from being a dad. I thought that a kid would only be less sleep, more responsibility. I didn't understand that actually it's so much fun. Like when he comes up to you, and I was watching the UFC on Saturday, and then I'm on the sofa and he comes in, he's like, "Hey, Daddy, watching the fights?" And he just sits next to me with his iPad. And I'm like, this is so awesome. He's my little buddy, I couldn't even understand that happiness. So I think being a parent for me has made me appreciate time more because you see them growing every month. And I see my friends who are just, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with this, just enjoying life. But I know for me, when I was 35, 37, 39, 40, the years just kind of go and you barely even notice them passing. And I feel like I'm so much more present now. I really notice time.
Yeah, I absolutely. I mean, I was 43 when my son was born. Oh no, tell a lie. I was 46 when my son was born, so I was slightly older. But like you, I thought I'd seen what the world had to see. I'd lived the best years of my life. I was like, the fighting for me was just the creme de la creme. I was driving in a Ferrari and I was out the weekends and I was loving life. It was good.
Yeah.
And then when I retired, it was a difficult process. I come to Thailand and things were good here, but there was still a void. But you're right now, like that. I'm living the best years of my life right now, just having that time with my son and my wife. I love what you say about him jumping on the beat. You watching the fights, Daddy? My boy's just know how to say fighting. I say to him, what's the meaning of life? And he say, boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and Muay Thai.
It's so awesome. I always think like how lucky they are to have us as I feel like being a parent as well has made me more sympathetic to fucked up people in life. You think about some of these kids in the south side of Chicago, dad's in jail, mom is addicted to drugs, they've got like 3 siblings, she's just like can't even look after herself, kids are basically taking care of each other. And you think, man, like some kids have that and their brain is like this little sponge just learning everything around them. And then our kids are just, they've got dads that love them, mums that love them, they have all this encouragement, they have resources, they have love, we're educating them. And it's just, it's made me much more sympathetic to before I had no sympathy for fucked up people. I was just like, they're a menace to society. Fuck that. And now I'm like, you know what? I see them as kids that are not always, sometimes they're just psychopaths, but a lot of them are just kids that didn't have what we had and what we were giving our kids. And it's definitely made me a more compassionate person.
Absolutely 100% agree. Because I was like you before, very, very stern, cold, not cold-hearted. I cared about people, but I felt like some people didn't deserve my empathy, and we had to see how you like it. Yeah. But now you're right. I just look at my son and I'm like, I just feel so sorry for these kids that don't have these opportunities and don't have this love and support. And I just wonder how they even survive. It breaks my heart. It does break my heart. But it definitely changes things, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's incredible. I heard this awesome thing, Nick. It said, kids are made of rubber and magic. And I was like, that's so true. They bounce back so quickly. So just before this call, I was sitting outside and it's on I have a concrete outside the house. It's basically 6 feet of concrete where we have a few chairs. And he's climbing on my legs and he falls backward on the concrete. Nick, my heart stopped. I thought he was going to crack his head open. He catches himself with his hands, but he still makes a pretty big thump on the concrete. And I was like, are you okay? And he's like, I'm okay, Daddy. And I give him a hug. And I'm just like, oh my God. Like, if that was me on that fall, I'd be like, I see my back right now. Like, Nick, I got a cat sock. Kids are made of rubber and magic. And I love that idea of, I don't know if you've thought about this, Nick, but I thought about this recently. So if you'd asked my 25-year-old self, in the next 2 decades, you're going to have all these different accomplishments. You're going to meet this amazing woman. You're going to be a parent. You're going to, do jiu-jitsu, win some titles, get your black belt, do all this cool stuff, make money, lose money, reinvent yourself. I would have said that's more than my brain back then could have even imagined. I would be so happy. But at the same time, there's something about when you're young, your life can go in all these different directions. And even if you had an amazing life and you've created this amazing life for yourself, there's something a little bit sad about the fact that your path has kind of been set and you don't have all that opportunity. So that's what I love about that expression. Kids are made of rubber and magic. They're magic because they're imagining all the places their life can go. And the world really is their oyster, just like you, moving from England to Thailand, making this amazing life for yourself,
Yeah. Do you know, I love that because I guess you could call it a gift. I was blessed with this open mind since I was young. I'm like, I have never let anybody ever, even when I was like 2.5 years old, tell me what I can and can't do. And I don't mean in the sense that you'll do as you're told. I mean, in the sense that you don't put limitations on what I believe I'm capable of. And dude, like there's nothing I can't do. There's nowhere I can't live. If I want to move here tomorrow and survive and thrive in another community in somewhere else in the world, I'll do it. And I've never had any problem stepping up to that plate. And I guess that's what's been so amazing because the world is such a wonderful place when you open up your mind to opportunity. Yeah. And a lot of people don't even understand the opportunities that are there. They don't see them. And those that do, more often than not, they're scared to take that step. Like, I see the opportunities. I can create the most wonderful things in my mind and then make them happen. And I'm not scared to take that step. And I don't think that's something that I've learned or been taught or developed. I think it was something I was born with and I'm blessed for having that. So yeah, the world is a wonderful place full of opportunities, man.
But that idea of so you can either not have the fear or you can have the fear and act in spite of it. So when I think back to, I always used to say this about fighting. When I was fighting, I was like, there's 2 different types of fighters. There's the fighters that if they weren't fighting in the arena, they'll be fighting after a few beers on Saturday night because they're just fighters. Yep. And then there's the people like me and GSP, where we were like, I remember seeing a GSP interview when he was about to walk to the arena to defend his title. And he was joking and he said, I wish there was a power outage. All the lights went off and they have to cancel the fight. So he, absolute pinnacle of a champion, he still had to overcome those demons where he was scared. And I love that because with me, not only was I scared for the fights, but I trained so hard. I had fear before most of my training sessions because we'd go to war in the gym. Back then we trained way too hard. They train a bit smarter now, Nick. We train like Neanderthals. So
that's how we go, bro.
So I love that idea of if you do something, it doesn't really matter what it is, but it's something where you have to overcome fear on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. Then it enables you'll never let fear stand in the way of what you want in other aspects of your life. And I think that's so important. Because you said you were born with that. That was like a superpower that you had. But do you think people can learn to overcome that? To like if you're thinking back, just say some of the people you grew up with maybe, and they're stuck in this dead end job they hate, and they're in a place in England, and they see your photos in Thailand, and they're like, God, I wish I had the courage to be like Nick. Do you think you can learn to overcome that fear?
Oh wow, what a question! I mean, what a beautiful perspective, and it actually touches me there because I'm that guy. If I wasn't in a cage, I'd be in the street. I'd be in prison. I would have just been an absolute nightmare. I'd fight anyone. It's male. I don't hit women. I don't agree with that. But I just love the challenge. Police officers, doormen, before I started fighting, that's what I was doing. I was looking for the challenge. So I was that guy. For me, stepping into a ring was like a step down from what I'd been doing. It was easy. I mean, it wasn't hard. But I still felt fear, but I felt more the fear of failure in front of my friends, which actually drove me to compete harder. But when we used to run my gym, we run this thing called white collar boxing, and it's basically white collar workers that are working 9 to 5 jobs, and their dream's always been to fight or have a boxing match and get all of the glitz and glamour of the walkout and the experience. And we'd run these events, and I'm not joking, Lawrence, we'd have like 100 people turn up to audition to try and get on these shows. Wow. And we'd put them through an 8-week training program, free. Over time, some of them would drop off, some of them would bottle it, whatever. But we'd be there for about 40 of them, and they'd fight each other. So they were training together. They knew each other, and they'd but
Well,
have to fight each other. We'd give them their matchups like the week before, and they'd have to fight. And I used to watch them walking into that ring, and I had so much admiration and respect for them because these guys were not natural fighters. These guys were actually stepping in to fight. Like, that's courage. Like, people used to say, wow, how brave I was, but I'm not brave. I just like it.
yeah.
These guys don't. That's courage. So yeah, I do believe you can overcome. And I get a lot of people ask me as well, like, oh, you must have so much courage to take that step. And again, for me, it's not courage. I don't fear it. It doesn't bother me. But those that do have that fear, it takes courage. I do believe you can overcome it, but it depends on how much you want to overcome it. It's like an addiction, right? If you've got an addiction, you're only going to beat it if you really want to.
Yeah.
If you're stuck in a rut, you're only going to get out of that rut if you really want to. So I believe it's possible to build the courage and overcome these things, but how much do you want it?
Yeah, you really have to want it. That's so true. So Nick, can I ask you, what are some of the things maybe the last 5, 10 years that did scare you, that you had to overcome?
Oh, wow. Wow, bro, instantly. Okay. It's not something that I've ever tried to be as fearless, but I am. I am really just never cared, never cared about my life, never cared. I was never scared of anything. Like, when I get into that cage, I'm happy to die in there. Like, I wasn't that bothered about them sort of things because I grew up in a really harsh background. When I was young, I was in a really bad, toxic environment with just a group of lads, and we were bad. And you just had to be ruthless and tough, and I was. Even though I had my morals and my integrity intact, I was ruthless and I was fearless. But I felt fear. And I felt fear recently. And it's like, do you remember when you watch the Superman movie and he loses his powers and he feels pain for the first time?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I
Like,
remember
I felt
that.
that. I felt that when my son was born. I looked at him and I went, oh, what if someone takes this away from me? And that fear just engulfed me. And that was horrible. That's the first time I've actually felt a real fear. The thought of losing something so precious. And to this day, I still feel it. It's like, oh, I've got such a great life. I've got such a wonderful little boy. What if something takes it away from me? That's the only fear that I really, really feel.
Nick, that's one of the reasons I really appreciate you saying, brother, that you think that you see me really enjoying every day, being in the moment, because I've worked so hard at that. Just like I truly believe, I didn't just say that to kiss your ass. I think you're a black belt life. I think you've made the most incredible life for yourself, and I love watching you share it. And I think I'm trying to do the same for myself, and I think I've done a really good job. But that's so funny you say that. So when he was born, I remember when he was really young. Yeah, maybe it was about a year. So he just started walking around. I do a lot of kettlebell stuff. So I have kettlebells in my gym. I lived in a little apartment back then. So I would just have the kettlebells, easy way to get a workout in. And I used to have this vision that I would be swinging a big kettlebell and he would come running behind me and it would just hit him in the face and it would just, be this bloody mess. And it was almost like I kept seeing it in my head, this picture. And it's so funny. I know exactly what you mean about when he was really young. I used to look at him and make sure he's sleeping on his front, make sure he's breathing. I was so nervous. And I remember thinking I couldn't even enjoy the first year because all I wanted was him to be a bit older, so he'd be a bit more robust. Because I was like, he's just so delicate. And I had this incredible fear as well. So it's so interesting, the Buddhist idea of, I love Buddhism as a philosophy, but it doesn't really make sense for us because in order to have no attachment, we can't have a wife, we can't have kids, you can't have really close friends. You can't have great things because anytime you build a great life for yourself, you're always going to have fear for losing it. So it's the idea of non-attachment doesn't really make sense living in the Western world the way we live. And there's that expression where they say, it's something about life is these waves. So sometimes you're on top, sometimes you're going through tough times, and the good times, the perfect times will never last. And I think that's one of my fears. I'm just kind of realizing it as we're talking is, like you said, things are so great right now, and you never know what could happen. And I think that's one of the reasons that I appreciate every day is because, man, I don't know, Nick, if you've had this, but I've had quite a few friends the last few years that have passed away, and they're our age. It's crazy. A lot of guys from fighting too. One from fentanyl, one from suicide, one from alcohol. There's one buddy from jiu-jitsu. His wife was really in shape. She always working out. She ran the marathon a few years ago. She was just a fit lady. They had 2 kids. She just dropped down, had a brain aneurysm, and died like a couple of days ago. And I see that, and I'm just, it's terrifying. It's really terrifying. So it just reminds me that, man, I hope that we're going to live a long life, get to old age. But man, the future is really not set. So we have to enjoy the present.
Absolutely, bro. I mean, wow. So let me say this, right? When I watch your posts on Facebook mostly, honestly, the way you live in the present, I can tell it's from appreciation from the past. This isn't you just living your life. I get that. Like, this is you living your life, like in the present moment because of the past. You don't just get to that point of the type of person you are around your family and your son without, we all appreciate when they're born. Of course we do. But I can see that there's deep rooted past that's really making you appreciate the present, which I absolutely love because I'm the same. So yeah, and I have lost quite a few people recently. Actually, it keeps happening. We get to that age, and it does make you think. But it's weird, isn't it? It's the paradox. This is there's a lot of paradoxes in life, but this one, when I was young, ruthless, fearless, and had nothing, right? There was a certain amount of peace in my mind and my heart. It sounds strange to now where I'm older, I'm wiser, I have everything you could possibly want. It's like back then I had nothing to lose, so I didn't carry any sort of anxiety or worry about that, but I had nothing really worth having. Now I've got everything worth having, I've got the fear of losing it. It's like, fuck's sake, life, give me a break. Just let me be happy. Get this shit away for once, bro. You can't have it all, bro.
That's so true. Nick, can I ask you, so when you said you had a lot of money in the bank when you moved to Thailand, but was it enough to retire? Because I know Thailand's a bit cheaper than a lot of places in the West. Or because I know you've done very well since then. I know you have rental properties. I know you were done all this crazy stuff, with BKFC, and you were refereeing fights, and so obviously you're working, you're making money. But could you have retired if you really watched your budget back then, or not?
Absolutely. Yeah, entirely. So I planned it all. My escape from the UK, I call it, because it was an escape. You literally have to plan your escape because it's a system that will trap you. It's all a facade. It is designed to keep you stuck. So it is modern day mental slavery. I'm sorry, that's what the British system is. And if you don't agree with me, I'm sorry, you're a fool. Okay, step outside of it for a few months and then you'll see what I'm talking about. That system is slavery. So I had to escape from that, which of course I did. And I did it very well. I accumulated a decent sum of money. Now, I come to Thailand, I planned my future, and I knew once I was here, okay, yeah, I can retire. Like, I can do nothing. I have financial freedom. But that plan didn't incorporate a wife and a son that now goes to private school. Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, I could retire. But now I've got to think about, his student fees alone are going to be $300,000 for the next 10 years just for school. If he wants to go to university after that, plus we want to have another one. So all of a sudden, that retirement plan's changed. No is the answer now. No, I've got to be thinking very differently, bro. But it's okay because I've got another plan in place. Oh, dude, I went through this crazy experience. So I come here, I was like, done. Don't got to worry. Financially free, sweet. And then I got married, and that was cool. My wife is brilliant. She never asked for anything, but we're happy. She's got anything she needs. She doesn't have to work. And then he come along, and I went, about a year later, I went, shit. I'm thinking like now, I'm not thinking 30 years into the future when I'm gone. I'm now thinking 30 years past that. Yeah. I haven't got enough money for that. So I freaked out. I had to really stop and think. And then the pain become worse than the route I had to take. I was like, look, I can't live like this. I'm worrying about my son's future. Now I have to change. So I went back into myself and I started planning all these new businesses and this future. And it's all coming together now and I'm very happy. But I had a phase where I had to make some changes and I knew that I didn't have enough money to take care of 2 generations.
That's awesome. But Nick, see, okay, so I had this conversation with somebody. He's got 3 kids and they're all a bit older. And he never made much money in his life. And he was kind of worried. He was stressful about, their future and having enough money. But I said to him, we've got to be so careful, Nick, because our kids are going to grow up not only with a lot of love, but, I think you and I live well. We live in a nice place. He's going to have nice experiences. I mean, you live in paradise, right? So I saw your post recently. You went on a family holiday and you said, I didn't have to leave Thailand because I live in Thailand. I said, so beautiful.
Wow, drive.
Exactly. But it's like, there's a famous thing in America with entrepreneurs, and it says most millionaires are not second generation millionaires. It's actually incredibly rare. So a lot of people say, they'd say one of the the insults of Trump is, oh, he came from a rich family, and so his success is not. They say it's not that impressive. I actually think that's more impressive because most kids of rich parents end up to be deadbeats. And actually, one of the reasons we moved an hour south of Chicago to Northwest Indiana. One of the reasons is because Indiana is a very libertarian state where it's low taxes, low crime. You get a lot of money. You get a lot of land for your money. So that was one reason. But the other reason is, in the north suburbs of Chicago, where a lot of successful people go, the kids of those parents are fucked up. They're addicted to drugs and they're absolute mess because they have all this wealth. But their parents, a lot of time, both parents are always working. So they're just kind of left to their own devices, and they kind of lack motivation because they grew up with all this wealth. So I don't know about you, but I think I grew up, I'd say, middle class, but my dad he grew up very tough. And so his thing with me was, anything you want, you're working for it. So I started working at 12 years old, and he gave me a really good appreciation for, if you want something, you have to, like you said, the sacrifice, you have to put a bit of sacrifice, you have to work, and then you can get it. And I think that's such a important lesson. And the more success we have in life, we have to be a little bit, I don't want to say careful to spoil our kids, but we want them to have that lesson. So for me, I think it's beautiful that you say that, because you're already thinking about his future, and you want him to have a legacy. But at the same time, I've been thinking about the same stuff. These thoughts you have as a dad, as a new dad. You think, well, I'd much rather, as opposed to leaving him some kind of financial legacy, which hopefully I will, I want to give him the skills that, they say, teach a man to fish, he can fish for the rest of his life. So I teach him to be strong, smart, adaptable, and resilient, so we could pick him up at 20, drop him in Mumbai, India, and 2 years later, he's got his own business and he's the man. Like that kind of mentality.
Fuck yeah. Love that, bro. Sorry to swear. But sometimes that's the only way to respond to that. Yeah. So look, I'm going to be building wealth, and I'm building wealth on top of wealth and on top of wealth. But you think I'm ever going to hand it over to my son if he's not capable of managing it? No way. No way. He ain't getting it. No, it's there for emergencies and there. So I know I've done my job. Okay. Yes. But like you said, and even now he's 3 years old, he can climb up and get into the car seat on his own. So I make him do it. I know it's a small thing, but I want him to be independent. You don't need me to pick you up. You can get up there yourself. When you need me, I'm there, but I'm not going to do it for you. I want you to show me you can do it. I want you to solve problems. I want you to fix things and build yourself into a strong, independent man. And this is what I respect about my dad, is that looking back, we had a very difficult relationship, but he made me strong. Strong. He taught me how to be a man, how to step up to the plate, how to work, how to solve problems. That's what he taught me. But I want to try and get the blend right between my son, knowing how much I love and care for him, but at the same time, pushing him in the right direction to do things for himself. So yeah, I'm not looking to build wealth just to spoil him rotten, because that would be a disaster.
I love that. Well, Nick, I love what you said about the car seat too. So I don't think that is a small thing. So Jen studied early childhood development, and she's really good at this stuff. And I see the way she's already making him do things. Otherwise, kids are just always, if you always help them, and it's so easy as a parent to always do things for them, it's going to stunt their future growth, and they're not going to see what they're capable of. So she's always pushing him to do things, and it's amazing. So I really think stuff like that, even though they're so small, it makes a huge difference in the way they see the world and the way they react to things. And it just gives them that early self-reliance. And one thing we always said is, we want our kids to be self-reliant, so they're going to have to, there's going to be times where they have to entertain themselves and they've got to look after themselves. And the earlier they can do it, it's such a great life skill. So I think as adults, one of the biggest problems people have is they can't just sit alone by themselves. They always need to be distracted or with other people. I think it's a superpower to be able to entertain yourself, be with your thoughts and look after yourself.
Yeah, I could not agree more. It's funny that, I mean, I completely agree. I think being comfortable with yourself, this is the mistake a lot of people make in relationships. They're not comfortable with themselves. They're looking to other people to make them feel justified or validated or whatever it is they're looking for. And that's the problem. Like, no one can do that for you. Until you're comfortable in your own skin, in your own time, in your own mind, then you're not really ready for a relationship, I don't think. But that's obviously a whole nother story. But yeah, I love my time on my own. The older I get, the more I enjoy it, bro.
Me too. Yeah, that I don't know if you have friends back in England that are single, but dating in America is tough, Nick. I mean, it is so tough. I got friends who I think they have they've got their life together. They're a really good catch. They see me and I want a family. I want what you have. And they just can't meet that person. And it kind of breaks my heart. And I don't know if I think a lot of it, I really think it's to do with the fact that if you think about how we evolved, thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago, little towns in England, there's 200 people. There's, you and I growing up, there's not going to be many choices for who we're going to marry. There's going to be probably a handful, a couple of girls that are our age that are okay looking, that okay compatible, and that's it. But now we have such a abundance of online dating, and there's just almost infinite options and it's the same for women too. They're always looking for more and better, that people are just always, they're trying to get more than what would be a good match. And they end up just getting nothing. And I see it with my wife's friends too. And it's brutal, brother. So I really got to say, dating today is really difficult.
Yeah. But here's do you want to hear my take on this?
Yes.
So, yes. Okay. I believe in the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. But whether it's business, whatever it is in life you want, relationships, money, whatever it is you're looking for, you're only ever going to get what you deserve. You have a great relationship, a beautiful wife, an amazing son, because you're that guy. Now, I've got friends that look at me and say, oh, they don't understand the morals, the integrity inside of me, the way that I respect my wife, the way that I care for her, love her, and treat her right. And they're out in Pattaya, sleeping with all these different girls, week in, week out, like they think it's a game. And then they're coming to me going, I just want what you've got. I'm like, you will never get what I've got while you're doing what you're doing. Like, don't you see that? It isn't about anyone knowing. It's about you inside. It's about who you are. You're only going to get back what you put in. So when you find yourself a decent woman, put Tinder away, put Thai friendly away, and give her some respect. Treat her with a level of respect. Yeah, well, women have stitched me up in the past. Yeah, that happens, right? So you get back on the wagon and you try again. But the minute you revert back to the old self, you're only going to get what you've always had. Try to be better. Like, what are you thinking? You're only going to get what you deserve. So I just believe so strongly that you're always going to get what you are, what you deserve.
I love that. And I think it doesn't just apply to dating, it applies in life too. Like if you work on yourself, one thing I realized, Nick, when you're talking about going back and analyzing your life, I love this lesson that I realized. When I worked for a trading company, they had an office in the US. That's who sent me to Chicago. And then after a while, the offices decided to break apart. So the Chicago office, they wanted to cut staff by 50%. So I was good at what I was doing. So no question I was going to make the cut. And then I had two friends, and one guy was pretty good, and one guy was kind of useless, but he was really funny and personal and charismatic. And they fired the guy who was pretty good, and they kept the guy who was funny because they liked him being around the office. And I thought, wow, they don't teach you that in business school. That if you're personable and people like being around you, you're going to have so many opportunities in business and life. And I got to be honest, I don't know the situation with you, but I really think that's one of your strengths, is why you get all these opportunities with all the cool stuff you've been doing outside fighting, but within martial arts and bare knuckle. Is I think people just like being around your energy. Obviously, you have an amazing work ethic and you're smart, but I really think like people want to be around people they like, good energy, good people. And so I think that's such a good lesson that I wish I had learned in business school. Is luckily I'm a nice guy and I'm pretty personable, but who would have thought that would matter in business? But the older I get, the more and more I see that, in real estate too. If you're a big investor, a big developer, and you sell, tens of buildings, 10, 20 buildings a year, and you're giving away hundreds of thousands of dollars in brokerage. Do you want to work with a broker you don't like, or do you want to work with someone you like? So I see all these different connections now in real estate. It's people want to be around people they like kindred spirits. They see the world the same way, things like that.
It's amazing you say that, because as much as I know you now, Lawrence, and what I've observed about you and your character over the last few years, this is exactly how I feel about you. This is what I see in you, is that personability. Like, you're successful. And I think a lot of that success is because of the type of person you are. You're right. People buy people. They're not, people don't want to spend time around negative people that don't contribute. It's all about personability. And that happened when I was fighting. I spent so much time nurturing the support base, and the people responded really well. And yeah, I think I learned from that just be personable, just be a nice person, just be genuine, and people warm to it. And it definitely is a key factor to success. And yeah, I love that.
Well, Nick, we'll have to do part 3 soon, because man, I love the way you see the world, and I love the way you move through life, and I love seeing you living day to day in Thailand, just enjoying the dream, but it's not a dream that you just fill in your lap. It's hard work. And I didn't know that. I just learned something new. I didn't know that when you left England, you had a plan like, okay, I've got the finances. I figured all this out. I thought you just went there kind of like happy go lucky and I'll figure it out. But you were very calculated with it. And I think that's one of the reasons you have all the success is because you're a calculated guy. And sometimes I'm sure people overlook that aspect because you're a big guy, you're a jacked guy, and they're like, oh, Nick, professional fighter. They don't realize that you're a very smart, hardworking, calculated person.
So I calculated my escape from the UK. When I come to Thailand, I didn't have a plan, but I very quickly created a plan. I saw what was around, I checked out the resources, and I created a plan. And I'm very, very calculated. And you're absolutely right. This is a thing that people don't see. I do spend a lot of time planning. And I said something recently to someone like, success does not come quick, but once properly prepared for, success happens very quickly. So by that, I mean, look, you can work on a project for years and years and years before you see any success. But once you put in the groundwork, that success comes quick. And then to everybody on the outside, they just see that success come quick. They don't see the preparation. I think for me, it's preparation and calculation is a very important thing.
I love what you said as well about when you won the title. You said that was 10 years of hard work to get there. Just as a reminder that it wasn't. And I think you're, from what you told me, I think you're pretty talented, athletically talented guy. Like you've got some physical attributes that are pretty good. But even with your attributes and your strong mindset and your lack of fear, it still took 10 years to win the title. So it's such a good reminder for people that want instant success is that anything worthwhile having in life takes some time.
Damn right. This is the key. This is the message. People never see it. People only ever see the tip of the iceberg. You know that. I mean, I had people that jumped on and only ever come to 2 of my fights. One was the title contention. The next one was winning the title. And they're like, wow, that was quick. I'm like, fuck you, man. Where were you 10 years ago? And I had injuries and I was living in a van. And but yeah, you're right. It's the journey, bro.
Brother, last thing I've got to ask you, because I know you're hanging out with Bob Sapp in Thailand. What's he like? I mean, he's such an old school legend. He seems like a great guy. He's such a character. What was he like in person?
Shall I give you the truth? So I actually quite like the guy. He's a character. He's loud. He is Bob Sapp. What you see is what you get. But he despises me. He hates me.
Why?
So we started working together and yeah, we were getting on well. We were like really getting on well. I really like the guy. I still do like him. But he started calling out Mike Tyson for a fight. And Mike Tyson wasn't responding. And I'm thinking, I could do a one last hoorah. And I'm thinking, Bob Sapp would be a great fight. Like, I'd fight in bare knuckle. I'd fight in boxing. I'd kickboxing, Muay Thai. I'd even fight in MMA. I don't care. I will beat that guy. But it's not that it's a personal attack. I like him. I just thought, what a great fight. He's in Thailand. I'm in Thailand. I'm the CEO of BKFC in Thailand. I could have got him a nice paycheck and we could have had a bare knuckle fight. Last hurrah. He took it personally, bro. He switched 180 on me. He went absolutely apeshit. He phoned up friends of mine and said, tell Nick to take that shit offline and blah, blah, blah. And to this day, anytime my name comes up, he hates me. He just talks shit about me. And I'm like, I thought Bob Sapp, being such a legend in the sport, understood, like, calling someone out. It's not personal. He wanted a paycheck. I could have got it. So if anyone's watching, tell Bob to kiss my ass. And if he wants to throw down any time under any rules, he doesn't even have to make weight. I will be ready.
Well, Nick, you're such a legend. You're such a legend because I see you. You're doing, I think, are you 49 right now?
49, yeah.
49, yeah. I see you doing, 10 rounds on the pads. I mean, you still get after it. And that's one of the reasons I respect you a lot. And it doesn't get easier, but we got to keep doing it because I don't feel good unless I'm pushing myself. So like, it's the legacy of our past fighting career, but we just got to keep it going,
Yeah, bro, I never stop. I was in the gym yesterday doing 10 rounds of Muay Thai. I'm just literally about to finish up here. The aircon is on in the gym in my house. I'm about to smash out chest and triceps. I'll be grappling tomorrow. And that shit's never going to stop.
I love that. And brother,
I'm always ready for Bob Sapp.
And brother, I saw you getting your brown belt. Man, I got to say, yeah, just one more, Nick. You got to keep it going. You got to get your black belt so that, it's going to be great when you're teaching, when we're both teaching our boys jiu-jitsu.
Oh, definitely. The black belts are tricky. So I've been grappling 20 years, but being an MMA fighter, I was always in board shorts. I never really focused on jiu-jitsu. So I've been 100% on that the last 4 years here in Thailand now. And yeah, I've got my brown belt. So yeah, I've got to get the black. I can't stop now. If I don't get my black belt, what type of an example am I to my son?
And you know what it is, Nick? It's like, because that was the last thing I did too after my fighting. And I feel like it's like a nice cap on your career, you know, the black belt jiu-jitsu.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How long have you had your black belt now?
It's actually going to be 9 years. I'm due for my 3rd degree in December. So it's coming up.
Oh, that's amazing. That's fantastic. So I love that.
Oh, thank you. I got my cub, his first gi. It's so he looks so cute in it. But it's just I don't want to. I want to wait a little bit, because today I took him to the gym and I was grappling with a buddy of mine, and he was just kind of trying to jump in when we were grappling. So he wants to get involved, but he doesn't really know what it is yet. But I'm waiting for him to ask me, because I don't want it to be something that I'm pushing on him. I want him to be like, hey, I want to do this with dad. And then it'll be our thing together. So I think he's really close to Nick. I've got a gym up the road where they have kids classes, and he said about 4. So I think next year is going to be, he's going to start his journey.
What a great parenting. I mean, I just so much respect and admiration for so many things you've achieved in your life, and just watching you with your son, because you're like a year ahead of me, and I'm just watching, absorbing, and that's something I'm going to follow. I'm not going to push him. I'm going to let him come to me. I think that is perfect, because he's going to watch. You're his hero. He's going to want to get involved.
Exactly. And I'll tell you this, because I just read this the other day, and it resonated with me so much. I know it resonated with you. It's great that we can give our kids wisdom and we can talk to them about things and give them advice, but it's really not what you say, it's what they see you doing. So if you always talk about, oh, you need to respect women and do this, and then they see you, talking shit to their mother, they're obviously going to say, well, that doesn't do what he says. So the words are going to be meaningless without the actions. So I think the most beautiful thing that this book was saying is, in order to be your best parent, in order to be the best parent you could be, you have to be the best person. And I found that so inspiring, because all the decades of self-improvement and things we've done, and I know you've spent decades just, learning, reading, taking courses, improving yourself in all these different aspects of your life. All of that is going to pay dividends to make you a better parent, because it's going to be things you can pass on to your son and things he's going to learn about you as he gets older. And I just think that's the most inspiring thing. And then like you said, he's going to see you, doing your lifting weights, going to jiu-jitsu, hitting the pads. He's going to see you doing that. And he's like, he's going to think it's normal until he sees his friends' dads that are slobs. They do nothing. And he's like, oh, actually, my dad is a superhero. So it's so, I find that so inspiring. Like, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. And I actually thought the opposite, Nick. I thought when I became a parent, I would lose all my motivation, because, you hear those expressions like, oh, he's got a dad bod, and you give up, right? And I actually think it's the opposite. Like, I'm inspired to create a legacy for him. So I think that's so cool that you and I have that lifestyle that our kids are going to look up to.
Absolutely, bro. Can you please send me a link to that book? Because what you just said there is exactly, I mean, that's the meaning of life, in my opinion. It's like I said to my friend about wanting this great woman. You got to be the person that you need her to be. But it's because you're talking to yourself every single day. Once you start to believe you are that person, you act that person, and whether it's for your son, whether it's for a partner, I love that. I believe that so strongly. I'd love to read that book.
Oh, definitely, brother. I'll send it. Yeah. Nick, you're one of my favorite people, man. I really mean it. I love looking at your journey, and I'm honored that you look at me as a dad, because I am a year ahead of you on the path, but I'm learning every day, and we're just doing the best with what we have, but we're really lucky. I think it's so exciting to have no idea where their lives are going to take them, but I know we're going to give them a really good base and foundation for them to do great things. So I just think it's so freaking exciting.
I have no doubt about you as a parent, bro. As I say, I admire you. I watch what you do, how you say, and you're a year ahead of me. So please let me know the mistakes as you make them. I don't need to make them.
Well, brother, go get after it in your workout, and you're the man, Nick. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Cup and cup.
Cup and cup.